Hello all, welcome to our first week one lecture on the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. Um, some of you may be familiar with these founding documents that establish the founding civil rights that most Americans live by, but we're just going to review some main points. Okay, so the first is the Declaration of Independence. The Continental Congress appointed a committee of 5 men to write a public rationale for their independence in June of 1776. Thomas Jefferson was originally selected because of his reputation for elegance in writing. Says Thomas Jefferson on one of the very first drafts of the Declaration of Independence. So some of you may be familiar with the start of the Declaration of Independence, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds that have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind, require that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. And in this first paragraph, Jefferson is laying out that things have happened and it has made it possible that they have to dissolve their political bonds with England, and that this document is going to enumerate the reasons that they can no longer stay united with England as a colony. But I think the most important and probably the most often quoted is clearly in the start of the second paragraph, which is, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And I'm sure that a lot of you know the background that he is paraphrasing John Locke, who originally said that all humans have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. One of the reasons that Jefferson changed it to the pursuit of happiness is because he believed that's what property was, that it was the chance at happiness. He was a firm believer in individuals' right to own property, and how important the right to property was. It may seem to us this is not such a radical idea, but you have to keep in mind in the 1700s, democracy was not really something that was done or thought about. Most countries had a king or a queen. That the idea of a constitution which entitled you to rights is something that was foreign, and clearly we're not quite there yet. But so this idea that all men are created equal was really, really very radical. And some of the realities, it says that all men are created equal. It doesn't mention women in the Declaration of Independence at all. And a second reality is that Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. So he wasn't really talking about all men when he said all men are created equal, although he did believe that the slaves needed to be free. He didn't even do that in his own lifetime. He also was probably leaving out Native Americans when he said that all men are created equal. And the reality is that by the time we reach the Constitution, and the first people to vote in our nation will be white male property owners. It won't even be all white males. It'll be property owners. And that was because our founding fathers felt that they were less influenceable because they owned property, and that made them more free and independent thinkers. And that's really important, because the Declaration of Independence will be paraphrased by many other groups subsequent to its writing, and the call for rights, the call for equality for all will really be expanded. And that's kind of what our class is based on, is starting at the Declaration of Independence and seeing how we expand the call for civil rights. So some of you may or may not know, our first government was actually the Articles of Confederation, not the Constitution. Um, it was a weak central government with little control over the states. People early on were very concerned about states' rights. You have to remember that they were being very directly influenced by the American Revolution. And what they bring out of the American Revolution is a fear of tyranny. They fear that a government too strong will repeat the concerns of the British government. This means that early on there's a lot of concern that states maintain some of their individual rights, and that is such a prevalent concern in the Articles of Confederation that it cannot even levy its own taxes or really accomplish anything. And quickly the states find that they're kind of dissolving into separate foreign nations as opposed to being united in any way. Even after the original writing of the Constitution, there were still concerns about a strong federal government, and it kind of develops into two camps, the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists. There are founding fathers on both sides. One of the most famous documents to come out of this is the Federalist Papers. It's a series of articles written in the New York papers by Federalists, leading Federalists of the day. They were written between 1787 and 1788. There are 85 articles in all. They were written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. It's not stated these were the only Federalists, but these were the Federalists that specifically wrote the Federalist paper. And they basically just emphasized and went over why a central constitution, why a central strong government was so important. Some of their concerns were things like the ability to levy taxes, not only that, but also foreign diplomacy and defense, and some of these ideas that were not able to be addressed by the Articles of Confederation. So in the end, the Anti-Federalists were appeased by a Bill of Rights. The goal of the Bill of Rights was to protect both individual and states' rights. It addresses the concerns of the men at the time, and many of these concerns came directly from the American Revolution. So I'm not going to read all the amendments. One of our readings this week is the Bill of Rights, and I cannot emphasize how important a reading this is, not just for our class, but really for you as an American citizen to understand what your founding civil rights are. I am going to read one example, is Amendment 3, which is, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So one of the things that revolutionists were concerned about was that the British had actually, even after the French and Indian War was over, forced colonists to house soldiers. And then there was the Quartering Act, which further forced this idea on the colonists. And they were very concerned that the federal government never again be able to force this issue on the American people. So in conclusion, the goal of the first lecture is to just kind of go over these basic documents. Like I said, your readings this week are going to include readings about these documents. I want you to read them firsthand because I think it's very important to our class and to, like I said, your understanding of what your civil rights actually are as laid out by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, that some states would not even approve the Constitution without a promise of the Bill of Rights. It was so very important to them that these rights be guaranteed. Um, and I also want to point out again that, we have to understand that some rights were ignored by the Declaration of Independence. We did not see freedom granted to women. Women achieved virtually no legal rights out of the American Revolution, and African Americans are still held in slavery during this period. So that's kind of what my next lecture is going to address, is some of these issues and some of these groups that were left out. So then each week in my PowerPoint, I'm also going to include a reference list. This reference list is going to include a couple things. First of all, it's going to include the textbook that I use, that I'm going to pull the basic facts and figures from. We need a source for when our dates and our statistics come from, and this is what I'm going to use. It's just a very basic American history comprehensive textbook. But probably more important is where I'm going to pull some other information, including our images from. I try to stick to sources that might be good for you guys to use in the future in your papers and your discussion boards. So please feel free to always check out my reference section and see if there's something that can be useful to you in there. Thanks, you guys. You have a great week.